someone's in a band, it's a really big band, and then somebody goes solo. Maybe the lead singer goes solo. Maybe, or the front man, whoever the front man is.
Yeah.
That front man goes solo.
Yeah.
In your estimation, how often does the solo project is just as good as the band or better? Does that ever happen?
Almost never, in my opinion.
So interesting.
See, I think that like the solo. Okay, so I think that if you're going to do a solo thing and you're in a band, it had better be significantly different than the band that you were in. Otherwise, this is just about you. You know, like Brittany Howard from Alabama Shakes. Great example. She just released an album that sounds exactly like Alabama Shakes. What you did was you cut your band out. That's what you did.
Ouch.
I find that to be scumbaggery.
Is that the lady with the unbelievable, she's got a great voice.
Yeah, she's got a great voice. Yeah.
So,
But,
her name was Brittany?
Brittany Howard, yeah. But so, like, even like Pearl Jam stuff, it's like, unless it's a huge departure, did you really need to? Some of Eddie's stuff kind of tends to be like a bit of a departure. Like he did the ukulele album, and I felt like, yeah, that was different maybe enough. Pearl Jam's not going to put out a ukulele album. But yeah, generally I just kind of feel like it's scumbaggery. Now, my favorite act, maybe of all time,
Which I know who that is.
Paul Simon. I thought that Garfunkel was just dead weight. It was an unnecessary part of the equation. So I much prefer Simon without Garfunkel. Like, I don't want to watch Simon and Garfunkel. Not interested. Paul Simon, though. Oh, yeah.
For your birthday once, did I randomly give you like either a Graceland t-shirt or an album? Or
Maybe you gave me the album.
Did I give you like the re-release, remastered?
Maybe, yeah. That sounds right. Yeah.
And did you, when I gave it to you, this is years ago, when I gave it to you, did you already have like multiple of those albums and you were just really nice that I gave you another thing because you already have that?
Lots of people have given me Graceland on vinyl because they know that it's my favorite album. Like, I talk a lot about it.
So I'm the 17th person who's given
I've got
me
a few
something.
copies, but I treasure them all,
Maybe you left mine.
We're rolling, right? Are we going?
Oh, yeah. Are we good?
Yeah, okay. We're going.
Okay, great. Yeah,
They caught all that early
good
genius exchange.
So on the TV here, this is just kind of a representation. We were talking about how when, like Frankie Say the Pod, it's not about Frankie all the time. Yeah, it's Frankie Say, but it's about the guest, and it's about the exchange between the two minds that are talking. And I think most interactions should be like that. But if you ever go to Frankie Say, Mike's on here 2 or 3, 4, 17 times. You see last week is Frankie and the Clits.
Yeah.
Talking about
shingles. I saw that. That was gold. I enjoyed it. Ricketts. That's pretty good.
Well, you sent me a really nice text about it, and then I was like, man, that was a really nice thing to get from Mike Shull, because Mike Shull's, you are like a very valuable critic.
I wouldn't tell you that it was good if I wouldn't have reached out.
Right, and then after you said something nice, I told my wife, I go, man, Mike Shull just sent the nicest thing. And so it must be good if Shull likes it. And then you said another nice thing. I'm like, what the hell? Mike Shull really likes this. I'm like, we're going to keep on trying to get canceled.
You guys have a strong rapport, which I think is tough to come by. You have a good rapport. It's like no one is pushing or pulling too much. You complement each other well.
Well, you know what it is.
It's nice and clean.
You know what it is? It's two people that don't get a chance to talk that often.
Yeah.
And anything that we want to say in the off weeks, we save it.
Yeah.
And we kind of store it.
That's the key, yeah.
And so we don't, we don't accidentally, inadvertently, kind of blow the wad on the off days. And then when we finally get together, but you have to wrangle somebody who cannot be wrangled.
I'm aware. Yeah.
Klitz is absolutely a force that you have to use to your advantage.
Yeah. We always say in my band that if we have a gig coming up, we have 2 gigs this weekend, and we practiced last night, and it was a really good practice, which is always a bad sign. We like to have a bad practice before a show, because then the show is better. When we have a really good practice, it makes us nervous.
Okay, so
I don't know why that is, but it just kind of has seemed to work out that way, and
Okay, who played the best? That freaked you out? Was Megan's vocals so on point and so angelic?
This is awful, but I really feel like I played really well.
You're gonna bomb.
It might have been me.
You're gonna bomb.
Me. Yeah, I might. Yeah, I might. But yeah, so what do you want to talk about? You know,
there's so many things.
Usually, I come in here like prepared. I got nothing.
Okay, so a lot of times you come on specifically because I've got geopolitical questions.
Yeah.
And I'll throw you a text or a phone call or something. I'll say, hey, can you come on and like talk about this one particular thing? And I do have 2 or 3 of those.
Okay.
But
I might know nothing about them. I don't know. You know.
Fat chance of that. Well. On the way here, before we get into some of the geopolitical environment, and before we start talking about the black smoke that I was talking about,
right?
Because I want you to throw in just I know for a fact you have a unique perspective about this, about the black smoke, and we can talk about it. But first, on the way here, something is happening in Quincy. And it has to do with construction.
Yeah.
And nobody in Quincy is happy because when there's no construction, people are mad that the potholes aren't getting fixed.
Yeah.
And then when there is construction, people are like, oh my gosh, what is happening with State Street?
Yeah.
What is happening with Main?
Oh, Broadway is insane right now.
So can I tell you one little detail about Broadway that I feel like is completely insane?
Sure.
In between, essentially, I want to say like 20th, in between 20th and 26th, somewhere in there, there's a 4-block area that just had to have set the world record for the most number of cones. Have you driven through there yet?
No, I don't know. 20th and 26th on State Street?
Broadway.
On Broadway.
Broadway is out of control.
Oh, yeah.
No, I mean, so instead
I just drove down it. Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, so there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cones and orange barrels on top of each other.
Now, is this the water main? Is this what that is? Is this the water main part? I know they did like they're doing a lot of the little connection streets between Broadway and Spring Street, which always makes me wonder why they're stopping there, you know? And probably it has something to do with the fact that Broadway is like a state highway, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, state highway. So I drove by there.
Yeah.
I was trying to get to Walgreens and I missed my turn. You can't turn onto 16th from Broadway. You have to pretty much cut through like the Ace Hardware parking lot and make your way back onto the newly poured blacktop.
I think you can turn on to 17th right now.
Can you?
Yeah, I think so, because that's where Spring Street is, so I know it well.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You can't turn on to 17th.
You can.
You can?
You can't. Yeah, you can't turn on to 16th.
Okay.
Yeah. And turning on to 18th now is a pain.
All of that blacktop that stops right before you get to Spring Street.
Yeah.
Why didn't they? I mean, they really just truncated.
They redid that. Yeah, they just redid it. They're redoing a lot of those little streets meeting up with Broadway. What was it? What was the amount that they said that they are paying on this replaced water main? They moved over like $4 million from the $6 million fund. I think I read that in a David Adam article. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm just going to say it. When I get all riled up about stuff like the riverfront, for instance, this is what I'm talking about. We don't have it. We don't have it. It's a luxury item. You know, that's something that I think, like, I've been thinking a lot about in the build-up to this. So I'm enamored with, like, when I go somewhere, like I'll go into Spring Street, and people will get a hold of me, and they'll start talking at me about their political position. And, like, everybody in there knows kind of that I'm, like, most of the people that are getting a hold of me are pretty liberal. And they're coming at me real hard. And, like, I came to this conclusion of, like, when you're talking to people on the other side anymore, this has all become so contentious and it's all become so weaponized that we're never really talking about the same thing. And I'll give you like an example, like on the local level. The riverfront is a great example. The two arguments are, mine is, hey, we need to save money, right? The other one is, you hate fun stuff and you don't care about Quincy. So we're not even arguing about the same thing. It's kind of like the abortion conversation. You know, they're not really arguing about the same thing at the end of the day, even though like the result is sort of the same. But yeah, like anymore, it just seems like things have become so contentious that honestly, I think it's like, and this has been going on for a while, but it's to the detriment of like actual believable information. Like I actually, like even when I read something that jives with what I think, it does not, I have no idea whether or not it's true or not. I have no idea the validity of the statement that's being made in the thing. And I could be reading an article in a scientific journal, you know? I just did that. You know what I was reading about? This is kind of crazy. I'm not a nut, but I was reading about grounding. You know what grounding is?
Wait, not the electrical thing?
Yeah. So, but like on a human level.
You're talking about taking your shoes off and,
Yes.
and touching a tree?
Exactly. Yeah. The idea that like you ought to take your shoes off and go and walk around outside. Okay. So this was interesting to me, and I'm like, you know, I wonder. So I got online and I do what I do, which is I go and I try and actually find like a scholarly article about the topic. And guess what? I found one. And it was like, grounding is real. We did tests and we determined that grounding is real. And there was really nothing in that article that, unless you did a real deep dive, would have stood out. But ultimately, you know who paid for that article?
Who?
People that sell grounding technology.
Oh, wow.
So that's where we're at. That's why like nothing is believable anymore. Is because like both sides have permeated the entire structure all the way down to like scholarly articles. You cannot find objective information anymore that hasn't been tampered with. And we've got this pendulum going. And this pendulum is just swinging back and forth. And the Biden administration, it went all the way up here. And now the Trump administration's gone all the way up here. And I mean, God help us next time around.
Well,
because it's going to be bananas.
If it goes up, yeah, so it goes back to this pendulum. Actually, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think she's one who said, I've got no problem with the eagle. I've got no problem. You know, Ben Franklin wanted the turkey as a national bird, but she was talking about how really the symbol for America should be the pendulum, because of how our politics work, on how...
I agree with Ruth Bader Ginsburg on something I learned today.
RBG.
Yeah.
RBG, RIP. I say that every day.
really feel like it is kind of crazy. And I feel like 95% of the people that I talk to are operating on this complete and total, like, non-bipartisan kind of way. Like they 100% see things from their point of view and no one else's, and everybody else is wrong and their side is 100% right, even when the information gets kooky. And that to me, like, that kind of freaks me out, you know?
So do you think it's tribalism at its best, at its worst, however your perspective is? What is that?
Because I do think that it is tribalism to a degree, because like nothing makes you feel smarter and better than everyone else like standing with your group of people, shouting down people that have beliefs that run counter to yours. And the way that that's accomplished now is by getting to the root of some humanistic quality within the thing that you're arguing against. Like you know, you just brought up like border walls, right? Like shouting down the inhumane nature of this. Well, these are people too, and they deserve refuge. But at the same time, like the other side isn't even arguing that. They're just arguing that like for the safety and security of the nation, we need this. And laws have meaning. And you know, the way in which you enter the country says a lot about your ability to adhere to law. So it's like at the end of the day, no one is even arguing the same point, but they'll just continue to kind of shout each other down. I see this like out in the real world a lot. And it's just, you know, I don't think it's any worse or any better than it has been recently. But, you know, like lately, man, it's been pretty egregious.
Well, you can see it on Facebook comments on your own personal newsfeed. Yeah. And you can see it, so like even on like Muddy River's Facebook page, there will be a bunch of posts that come out. You know, they're very, very popular. Whenever David Adams sends all the analytics, which are super secret and private, and I could never show anybody.
No.
But they made me take a. I took a blood oath.
Yeah.
It was a very
Right.
crazy.
To not share them.
Yeah. So I won't talk about it.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, the things that you wouldn't expect to be extremely popular are the ones that everybody clicks on, like the QPD blotter.
Yeah.
There's no comments on the Facebook post of the QPD blotter, but you'll have something just completely off the wall where there's 200 comments and all the bots are coming out. But here's the point. To your point, if you go and read those comments, somebody will say something, they'll say their opinion, and then somebody else will come on and say their opinion, and it's not even in the same ballpark. No one's arguing in the same arena. And what winds up happening is almost every single time someone will resort to ad hominem.
Oh, yeah. Well, and also, like, you know, like I was just having a conversation with someone in the Facebook comments about this exact topic, and it was like their point, I didn't understand what they were saying at first, but like their point, well, my point, I guess, at the end of it is that, like, it's really good for business, you know, when people start getting into it in the comment section. It really makes, like, an article blow up. You know, like, nothing is better than when people start arguing. I mean, like, honestly, like, I think Brittany would be the first to tell you that, like, she sort of made her online presence by getting into it with people in the comments. And, had people just not engaged with her, like, it never would have gone anywhere.
Right.
But, like, topics like, you know, like the, like, what's back is the food and beverage tax. We're talking about that again. But when that thing was first happening, like, that whole thing would have just blown over, right? But, like, there was tons of engagement. And it was really people that disagreed with what we were saying that were, you know, we were coming at each other. And that's what made the whole thing blow up, which I wonder what's going to happen with that. Are they going to renew that thing? I think they're going to double it, right?
Oh,
2%?
Are they going to go to 2%?
Probably.
Well, I think originally 2% was asked, and they compromised to 1%, which felt like some kind of a win for the people who didn't want it. But
yeah, I mean, I think I always knew that they were going to jack it back up, but like, I kind of, I mean, I take a little bit of credit for that 1%.
Do you? Oh, you should take should take some credit for that.
Yeah, Brittany and
I. For sure. I think for those, you know, that don't know what the food and bev tax is, it's just another additional sales tax on top of everything. And if you go to a food and bev place, that food and bev place is going to put a 1% tax on your bill, and they're going to give it to Target.
Right. Yeah. Right.
That's all.
That's all. Target. That's it.
It's no big deal.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And I don't know. You know.
Subsidizing Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah. You know. I lost my train of thought entirely.
Well, I'd like to ask you if you think, what do you think of Linda Moore, Madam Moore, Quincy's first female mayor and first totally awesome mayor that can wear a T-shirt that's got an awesome pothole thing on it.
I really like Linda Moore. I voted for Linda Moore, but you know, I mean, part of that was just because I liked her. Like, I actually genuinely agree that she, like, was not running as an independent just to, like, hoodwink people. I just think that, like, you know, it's kind of a pointless aspect of local politics. And I think that, like, the times that you see party coming into local politics, I think it's destructive. Because what I kept seeing, like, in the run-up to the election was people online were saying, like, stuff about Trope and stuff about Linda, but it was all just like stuff that was enmeshed in party politics, like things that she had said about stuff that really doesn't even matter, like in the past, you know. And like, I mean, I can't imagine a lot of scenarios where it would matter. Like the one that came to mind, like, because I was thinking about it. I'm not just going to be like, oh yeah, Linda, you know. So I was thinking a lot about it, and the only scenario that I could think about would be like another COVID type situation. But I think at this point, if there was like another COVID situation, like I think the majority of Quincy would just be like, piss off now.
Would you be okay with getting rid of all the R's and D's after people's names in local politics, but requiring them to fill out a very basic 10 to 20 answer sheet of just generally where their politics lie.
Well, that seems like it would be kind of strange, but I'll tell you why.
It would be strange.
I'll tell you why I would, is just because I'm at the point where I don't really identify with any party. I just feel like I need to cherry pick the things that I'm about and put them in my own basket. So that would probably be better for my understanding of like where they're coming from. I find it odd when people just sort of like just say, this is my party, and then they just agree with everything line item. Like, I'm sorry, but there's just no way that all of these people happen to just agree with all of these things line item. I honestly, and this has nothing to do with my political leanings, I believe it less on the left than I do on the right.
That's interesting.
You know why that is?
Why?
Religion. Because religion tends to be a factor in a lot of people on the right, so I understand how they can be like, yes, 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 or no, 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 no.
Sure,
no.
sure.
But the left tends not to have that. So it seems just more like cultish mentality to me. That they're all, I mean, and you could make the argument that, maybe that's just what religion is in general. I'm not going to go down that road. But it seems, less genuine to me that everybody just happens to agree with everything that everybody else thinks on the left.
It's strange because anytime that you do something like that, like when you belong to a club.
Yeah.
So if you belong to a political party, you belong to a club.
Yeah.
If you belong to a religion, you belong to a club.
Sure.
I love talking about like kind of comparing it to being a Bears fan, like a Chicago Bears fan, okay?
Yeah, okay.
And so, when you always make the joke about, ooh, great, sports ball,
Right.
things like this.
Right.
But this is the relationship I make to it.
Yeah.
If you're wearing a Bears jersey and you go to Soldier Field up in Chicago and they're playing the Green Bay Packers, if you start rooting for the Green Bay Packers, being a Bears fan, well, it's never been done. It's never been done.
You as a Bears fan cannot root for the Packers because of proximity?
Because the Packers are the biggest rival to the Bears.
Okay.
And everybody around you will look at you like, what the hell are you doing? Especially, okay, let's say you're in your own home. You're not wearing a Bears jersey. You're in your own home, and let's say you've got 10 Bears fans. It's just the guys.
Yeah.
Smoking cigars, feet kicked up on the chairs, on the ottomans, and you got the big screen, and you're watching the Bears play the Packers.
Yeah.
Okay? Everyone knows that you're a Bears fan, and there's no Packers fans there. If you stand up, and every time the Packers score a touchdown or make a good play, you're like, yeah, all right, Packers. That would be akin to like somebody who hates Donald Trump. Donald Trump says, I'm going to take that El Salvadorian guy,
Yeah.
and I'm going to send him to the gulags in El Salvador.
Yeah.
And then somebody from the Democrats goes, yeah,
What about
get rid of it.
What about
Yeah.
this though? What about this scenario? The Bears are, I don't even know what, like, I don't know, the playoffs? What is how's working football? I don't know.
Football has playoffs.
Okay, so the Bears are in this, and they get taken out by the Detroit
Lions.
Sour Skunks. And so then Green Bay goes up against the team that took the Bears out. Can you root for Green Bay then, or is it still no way?
So this is what's so interesting. When you're a Bears fan,
Yeah.
you generally are not allowed to root for Green Bay.
Yeah.
And you would think, like, okay, so in real life, in high school sports, if the Blue Devils are playing,
hot as
oh,
blazes
dude,
in here? My
it is.
God, it's
I
hot
am
in here.
dripping with sweat right now.
Strip down a little bit.
As you're stripping down,
Dude, it's madness.
for all of those who
Pay the
are
bill.
not watching, just watching Mike Shull's
Yeah.
getting undressed.
Listen, I am.
So no, it's so if the Quincy Senior High Blue Devils are playing basketball, and heaven forbid they lose in a playoff situation, there are a lot of people that will say, you know what, that team that just beat us, they're really good.
Yeah.
I like that fan
Yeah.
base. They're really cool. You know what? When you're shaking hands in line and say good luck, I hope you win it all.
Yeah.
Because then you get beat
Right.
by the team that you don't want to lose to that team.
Yeah.
But maybe you could cheer them on. That happens.
But you know what it comes down to is
that doesn't happen.
Tribalism. Which, hey, going back to the El Salvadorian guy, I have a question about that.
Okay.
That I don't think anybody has.
Well, this is on our list of things.
Okay,
to
I don't
talk
think anybody
about.
has. I don't understand. So it's like, is he a citizen of the United States?
No.
Bye. I mean, what's the discussion? I just see, to me, I'm not all about tribalism, but in situations like this, like, isn't this the one thing that could like unite us? Is a little bit more tribalism when it comes to things like this? You know, I don't know. Like, what allegiance do I have to this guy? I tell Mayla this all the time. Like, Mayla, when she's at school, Mayla and Brittany both, like, we'll be out at a restaurant, you know, and there'll be some like old lady eating by herself, and it will ruin their meal because they're sad that this person is eating by themselves. And so what I say to Mayla frequently is, I'm like, look, you can't save everybody, you can't take in every stray, you can't be the person for everyone. Like, there's just going to be sadness in the world. And you know, get involved in the places where you think you can make a difference and it's worth it. But otherwise, don't, you know? And so this is one of those scenarios where it's like, I owe this guy nothing. I owe this guy nothing.
I think the people who are on the other side, the people who are very irritated about Trump doing that, we have to put them in a lot of different categories. So one category can be to be tribal.
Trump did it and I hate it.
I hate
probably one.
Well, no, it's I hate Trump.
Right.
Trump did something,
Right.
so therefore I hate whatever was done because Trump did it. That's the first category.
Right.
And some people refer to that as Trump derangement syndrome because they're not thinking critically about the situation. They think Orange Man bad first, and then they're like, okay, Orange Man bad did something, did whatever, and so now we're in trouble.
And then another group are making the humanitarian claim.
Correct.
Right?
They're saying that all people who reside inside the perimeter of the United States deserves due process.
That's a tricky discussion. That's a tricky topic that I've not seen a person involved in the legal schema who isn't extremely liberal make that argument. You know what I mean? Like, do they deserve due process? Do they deserve due process just to be removed from the United States? Like, we can't just send them back? I mean, I guess it's one thing if they're asking for asylum, but still, don't we get to evaluate that? Was he seeking asylum? I don't even know.
Well, what happens is anybody who seeks asylum automatically has this loophole into getting to stay.
Yeah.
They get their papers to stay because they're seeking the asylum.
Yeah.
So therefore, it would make sense that all 10 to 12 million people in the past 4 years
Would be like, hey, I'm seeking asylum.
As soon as you say that,
And then it bogs down the system to the point of making it insolvent.
correct.
Yeah.
Well, it's it's such an interesting thing because that guy from El Salvador, allegedly, he was from El Salvador. Allegedly, he did not want to get sent back to El Salvador because of a rival gang.
Right.
Allegedly,
A rival gang. A rival gang.
Allegedly.
Yeah. I don't want to go back there because the gang that hates my gang is going to kill me.
Right. And allegedly, he had MS-13 tattooed.
Yeah, I saw that. I never got a total breakdown of that whole thing because it was like a pot leaf, something else, a skull, and and so people.
Right.
And I can get whereas that might be a little like, I don't know, was that MS-13? Was it not? I don't know, you know.
But when But when he starts talking about his rival gang, then you have to ask him.
Excuse me.
God bless you. If he's talking about a rival gang, then I think it would beg the question.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Tell me about your gang.
Also, when we're talking about these humanitarian issues, it's important to point out the unbelievably horrific things that have happened under all of these presidents that are not in the name of humanitarian. I mean, the number of innocent people that have been bombed in countries to take out one guy, and so they wipe out the entire family in the name of getting this guy. It's like, come on. There are just things that we do as a country in order to ensure the safety and security of our country that that don't really jive with that. And that's not me talking about, George W. Bush. That's me talking about Barack Obama, who did more drone strikes, I think, than like the previous three, combined, right?
Well,
from the genesis of drone strikes.
From back to...
Oh, and also deported more people.
Well, he's a deporter in chief.
Yeah.
So again, taking the people who don't like the recent El Salvadorian situation, the people who... So let's take a step back from the... And I'm going to say TDS because that's on the premise that this is a bad guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't do good things. He's a con man. He's very bad. Yeah. He's thwarting democracy. Okay,
right.
So there's that.
Yeah.
But then there's the other group of people who don't know what Obama did.
Yeah.
Or
right.
they know what he did, but they're back to Orange Man bad.
Yeah.
Which I view that as, I don't view that as tribalism so much as I view it as radical tribalism.
Yeah.
Where,
well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say radical tribalism to the point of, okay, hold on a second. My side did things far worse than that, but the reason why we can't talk about it is because it's devastating in my case.
Right, yeah. And I mean, look, I will condemn any United States politician that does bad things, regardless of party affiliation. It feels like with a lot of the Trump stuff, though, what's going on is it's all future predictions of what's going to happen, as opposed to real things that have actually transpired. There's so much of that right now. So much of, well, this is what's going to happen. And listen, if ultimately it becomes clear, which I think we've already established that it's very difficult to determine what the truth of anything is anymore. But if there's a clear-cut case of something like that, I'll be the first to condemn him. I'll give you a good example. Run for a third term, and I will be very, very opposed to that.
Yep.
I will be like
Me too.
revolutionarily opposed to that idea.
Me too.
Like, you cannot do that. You cannot do that without a constitutional amendment, and anything else is despotism.
Correct.
So, I think I'm reasonable in this. I just, I look at this pendulum, right? And it's just like, well, let's see. Because I have a strong feeling that it's going to go back the other way next time, and then it'll just be all the people on the right shouting about the same stuff.
Well, let's talk about the third term situation for a minute. That's a perfect example of the style in which the current administration attacks what its perceived enemy. So, and I would take that on the level of extreme trolling, like expert level.
You think that's what it is?
I
remember when the rappers, like the term that came out in like the early 2000s, and it was like braggadocious or something, like where they were like, it was the term used to describe their method of like dressing down other rappers and bragging about how awesome they were. It's a bit of that. Yeah, it's a bit of that.
Well, a lot of it too is like,
I'm not sure that it's helpful, in politics, but
no,
but maybe it is. I don't know.
Well, it's helpful insofar that he was able to mastermind arguably one of the greatest political comebacks in U.S. history.
Yeah.
In terms of not really wanting to run for president, coming down the escalator, wiping the floor with 14 R's during a primary, throwing jabs. I mean, throwing like...
And I feel like it was so much related to that pendulum thing. Like, I feel like a lot of people, like, they weren't even really about Trump. They were just not about what was on the other side. I mean, they Weekend at Bernie'd us for like 4 years, You
mean the past 4 years?
Yeah, no, like the Biden administration. It was Weekend at Bernie's.
It was Weekend at Bernie's.
It really was.
It really was.
Like, it was Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
And so I think that there were a lot of people that were like, it's like a giant douche and turd sandwich at the end of the day,
Yeah.
It's like people didn't like either option, a lot of people, but they were like, we need to... I kind of feel strongly that, like, regardless of how people feel about Trump, I really do feel like the unchecked illegal immigration thing would have buried the nation. I really do. Like, it would have been a terrible thing long term for the United States.
Absolutely.
So I am kind of thankful in that regard that it worked out the way that it did. Regardless of how anybody feels about Trump or Harris or Biden, that was a bad course of action.
Well, that was one of the deal breakers for me.
Yeah.
Is allowing people to come across
Unchecked.
Yeah, I'll even say humans, souls,
Sure.
bodies,
Yeah.
whatever.
I'll do you one better. Driven here by and large by American foreign policy in the 1960s and 70s. Banana Republic stuff, upturning governments, that sucks, but I had no part in that. And I live in America today with my family, and we can't sustain every mouth to feed. It's like zombie apocalypse shows, We can't let everybody in. We don't have the resources. I'm watching The Last of Us right now. They're literally talking about that right now. They're like, we got to turn people away. He's like, no, we can't. He's like, literally, we can't. Literally. And this goes back to like the funding thing also, like the local funding thing. It's like, it's not about being cold. It's about being realistic. I want a new shirt. I need a home.
Can I use some devil's advocate
Sure.
on? So I'm clearly against that massive migration, that unlawful illegal migration into the United States. I'm against that.
Yeah.
But for fun, I'm gonna play devil's advocate and say how there are some weird silver linings into why it could be good, and not to push against like replacement theory or anything like that, because that's another topic that I love to talk about. I love getting into it because it's super interesting.
Yeah.
Just even like the statistics of fertility rates, like looking, I don't know if I sent you this or not a couple of days ago to kind of prep for this pod but the fertility rate of South Korea being 0.71, moving down to like 0.69. So
I'm lecturing on Japan right now, and their fertility rate last year was 1.3 children born per every fertile Japanese woman in 2025, or in 2024 maybe.
So South Korea is in a situation right now, and I'm making this kind of relevant to the United States, maybe. So I like to make, I said this to you before, even privately, and this sounds terrible, but I'll just say it again because I don't care. Let's pretend this is like a clit segment where it's just straight comedy, right?
Right.
No, so the right people, the productive people in America, more than likely are maybe not producing and reproducing enough.
Right.
But then if you're going to let in all of the people who are arguably not productive, we don't know if they're productive, we haven't given them a chance to because we haven't let them assimilate and work inside the melting pot of America. We don't know if they're productive, but guess what? They're going to be probably be way above the fertility rate. And it's not about race and color, religion and creed.
Yeah, no, that has nothing to do with my reasoning. Although the cultural aspect does have a bit to do with it, just in that heterogeneous societies are more difficult to govern. Like, that's like one of the things that Japan has going for it is homogeny, meaning everybody is the same, right? In every way, right? Even if we're just talking about like the outlook, the psyche of the country, homogeny is way easier to govern. Now, it does have some pitfalls in that, like, for instance, there's no refuge for misfits. So like Japan has an issue with suicide rates. They have a lot of suicide. And a lot of people would suggest that it's like because there's no refuge for misfits. Like if you don't fit into the thing and you don't achieve the way that you were supposed to achieve, there's nowhere to go for you. But homogeny makes an easier, more clear-cut governance. And heterogeneous societies are far more difficult to govern, essentially.
How scary is it, though, when we're talking about fertility rates, and as it relates to growing the population of the United States, using this relative stat of back to South Korea for a second, because it shows how you got guys like Elon Musk. Again, back to, if you think Elon Musk is a terrible person, then that means everything that comes out of his mouth is bad, evil. It's a con. He's trying to bring America down. But
He's very much about increasing fertility rates.
Elon Musk thinks that the greatest threat to human civilization is population collapse. And to the point of South Korea, the current 100 South Koreans that are alive right now, 100 South Koreans, this is hard to digest. On average, they will have 4 great-grandchildren.
Yeah.
That is the current reality and trajectory if nothing changes. Which, by the way, that stat, not even close to being something that I would consider real.
Well, I have a mixed bag in the feeling about fertility rates, but that's because of a greater, sort of larger view about how societies can get themselves out of trouble.
Okay.
My feeling on how societies, the only way that societies can get themselves out of trouble is through pain. Pain is the only way. So the fertility rate thing doesn't bother me as much because I know that what will eventually happen is this generation will get old. There will be no one to care for them.
Talk about the boomers?
Yeah, and they will die because no one can take care of them, if this is the scenario. And even the younger people will not have as much access to health care also because of the unbelievable strain that the older generation is putting on the younger. And so some of them will die also. That's terrible. But sometimes pain is the only road out. Sometimes I wish we chose pain more often. That's not saying like I want people to die. Obviously, I don't.
No, it's an
But like
Oprahism.
we will get our way out of the like fertility rates will pick back up eventually. But I feel like the reason why they've died out, like in America, in Japan, wherever, in Korea,
Everywhere.
is because the society now places greater strain on people trying to have kids. Like I know like in Japan, like the big issue is like most people of childbearing age still live at home. You know, construction practices in Japan lead to walls that are like literally paper thin. So I'm sharing a wall with mom and dad while, you know, my new wife and I are, you know, contemplating a family. Not exactly great situation.
Wow.
You know, a lot of companies in Japan won't even hire women with children because they want the totality of your attention. And then also, like, you know, men are expected, you know, a lot of men are expected to work really long hours. So it ends up being a really lonely situation for a woman raising a child at home alone. So a lot of people are, and also like you can just, you know, you'll have a better life. Houses are ridiculously expensive. A hamburger is like, you know, $25. So it's a difficult sell to have a kid. But what will eventually work that out is a lapse in fertility rates, because ultimately what will happen is jobs will be more readily available. What they're willing to give to possible employees will be better, less hours, better benefits. So the values will move over to, hey, have kids, you know? But it will only be through pain.
Again with the pendulum.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And through the pain. So I do believe that most of the best progress, even in my personal life, the only way, so if I'm sitting there thinking, man, I really should go do this workout, or I really should go read this book.
Yeah.
And this is something pain.
Yeah.
And you know what, even like not even pain sometimes, but discomfort.
Yes.
Because it doesn't necessarily have to be pain per se,
Yeah.
although we can say that discomfort is pain dialed down.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, you and I had talked about a couple weeks ago, and we didn't get to talk about it at all. We just kind of mentioned it. It kind of takes the tribalism, the geopolitics, the way that people look at things, and it goes back to this idea of there was a debate on the intellectual dark web, but I guess the intellectual dark web is pretty public now. It's the Rogan. So Joe Rogan had on the comedian Dave Smith.
Yeah.
And he had on the, how do you classify Douglas Murray? How do you classify
tabloid
that guy?
writer?
Is it?
Yeah,
Ouch.
I mean, ultimately, like
he would not
the
like
guy,
that.
I mean, like, look, he's done credible stuff.
He has.
But I mean, he's written a little bit of everything, and not all of it has been like highbrow stuff.
Well, for clarification, what can you describe? Just you or I can describe kind of how that debate went, because I think it's kind of
from my point of view.
For those who haven't seen it.
Yeah. So from my point of view, it was a classic example, and I'm not just going to put this on the left because the right does this too. In this instance, it just happened to be the left. Just entered into a debate believing that because they were so certain of their moral superiority that they didn't need to prepare at all and could just demoralize the opposite opinion into submission.
Well, this is interesting.
So he just got there and he just was basically like, I can't believe you think this, you're a monster, without actually
Who are you talking
offering
about?
Douglas Murray, without actually offering up any evidence at all for any of his points, you know?
Well, so in reference to anyone listening, there's a relatively, I don't want to call it a famous debate, but if you pay attention to podcasts and you pay attention to global, like kind of, and I'm going to call it a global conversation.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about the Israel and Gaza.
People that don't like Rogan
conflict.
are idiots. Like, I'm just going to say that because here's the deal. It's just normal people having a discussion.
Right.
No one is claiming to be anything. What? Because if you and I are standing around having a conversation at Spring Street and we're having a great time and it's going in a great direction, but then people start amassing and they start listening. And pretty soon we got a whole crowd assembled. What, are we supposed to stop what we're doing because people are listening? Like, this whole argument against Rogan is just more of this sort of like political hit job stuff. It's just because he didn't get in line with certain things that it became determined that there should be a political hit out on him, which is exactly what happened with Elon Musk. You know, oh, well, he's not falling in line, so we need to vilify him as an individual. Forget that he produces electric cars. Forget that he's trying to put people on Mars. Forget that he is the number one guy involved in space exploration. He's a monster.
Forget the fact that he's actually the number one proponent of battling climate change.
It's crazy.
He's the number one guy.
It's crazy.
He should be the left's trophy man.
Yeah, and they're like, well, in his personal life, he's blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I don't care that JFK was having an affair. I don't care about Monica Lewinsky. Govern well, and no one will care. You know?
Like, you know,
no one should care. But
it's just like, you know, with Monica Lewinsky, my mother was so mad, that Clinton was getting Hummers.
Right.
And then I remember my dad saying, honey, he balanced the budget with Newt.
Right.
And my mother, who is amazing, if she's listening.
Low unemployment.
She's like, I can't get past the Hummers.
Low inflation.
Bill Clinton kind of killed it.
Yes.
So did a great job. So back to this idea of you know,
Douglas Murray and all that.
Douglas Murray. Yeah. Well, but the Douglas Murray and Dave Smith debate that you can find on the interwebs. You just look up Dave Smith, Douglas Murray, Joe Rogan. Yeah. Well, it's a 2.5-hour debate.
Yeah.
And it's continuing in other spheres.
Yeah.
Like even in the Theo Von sphere.
Right.
And in the Bill Maher sphere. It's continuing everywhere. And what it is are you allowed to have an opinion if you have a lot of clout? Just like you were saying in the bar.
Yeah.
There's two people talking.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there's a microphone. And now all of a sudden it's going to 100,000 people, 1 million, 10 million.
Yeah.
Should you shut up because you don't have a degree?
Because there is no longer objective reality. We've done away with that. We've gotten rid of that. So, in my opinion, say whatever you want. Like, there is no such thing as an expert on anything. Even the experts are arguing with each other, going, no, that's not the way that it is. No, that's not the way that it is. We have passed, I tell my students, like, when I was in my 20s, I feel like we were in the information age. Now we are in the post-information age. There is no such thing as reliable, good information. Like, reality is just whatever you make of it. Like, that's nothing that I did. That's nothing that I want. I would love for there to be concrete answers to things. Yeah. But like, even like during COVID, like Wikipedia was like going in and editing articles to say hostile things. Like, there is no up or down anymore. So no, like nobody needs to be an expert on anything to talk about something, especially when they're getting together and they're going, now listen, I don't know the answers to these questions. I don't know if I'm right, but here's how it seems to me. I am much more apt to listen to someone who has keen powers of perception, looking at something and feeling their gut. I'm much more apt to listen to them than I am anyone else.
Or what about keen powers of perception and observation?
Right.
If they can look, so it's kind of like you got two people watching a movie.
Yeah.
And one person A thinks that the protagonist is a really, really good person. Yeah. And then person B watching the movie thinks the protagonist is like, no, this person's going to start wielding an axe and become an axe murderer.
Yeah.
It's like, well, hold on a second. Person B, why do you think that? Oh, because this is what my observations tell me. This is what my past history tells me.
Yeah.
One thing that drives me crazy, Mike, is not only are you not previously to, like, I mean, I don't want to keep on bringing up COVID all the time, but on the drive here, which, by the way, I bring that up way too much in these pods. I reference COVID a lot.
I mean, COVID is a great example because it's like, you think about like that trajectory. They backed off on everything.
Okay, this is what I'm saying.
They backed off on everything.
When I was driving on the way over here, I'm thinking to myself.
I'm not saying it didn't kill people. It was terrible. In the beginning, COVID was really bad. But I'm just talking about like the long-term look at what it was. Like you saw people clinging on to something that was obviously long since not a threat anymore.
I would make the argument that a super majority of all of the people that clung to the wrong information have not once brought it back up, apologized, saying things like, man, you know what? I can't believe that new information came out. I can't believe that it probably was a lab leak. They're not going to admit it.
That's the best example. Like, like even Jon Stewart, his take is so great. It's just like, it's the Wuhan coronavirus research facility.
When he was on Colbert.
Yes. And like you see like Colbert, like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do?
He was trying to shut it down.
Yeah, he's going off script. What are we gonna do? Like once again, like to those of you at home, COVID was bad. It was bad. When it happened, it did bad things. It killed people. I'm not arguing that. What I'm arguing is that we attempted to deal with it in a governance sort of way. And not all of that was based on anything realistic. Not all of that had any real like good effect. Like you look at all of the restrictions that were put in place and like, Omicron has come around and they're still like, hey, get that vax,
To avoid a winter of death.
Yes, exactly.
Well, okay, so it's like, I remember going through the TSA, trying to get on a plane. This is way before COVID. This is post 9/11, which I view, I'm not saying COVID or 9/11, one was worse than the other. What I will say is those were massive things that happened in my lifetime that I think about, and I don't like the way the government reacted. They did terrible things. Case in point.
Do you think that people would have
my little grandmother?
Yeah.
My little grandmother.
Yeah.
My little grandma. My little 92-year-old grandmother.
Yeah.
She's teeny tiny. She's 4 foot tall. They wanted her to take off her shoes.
Right.
She was a threat until proven otherwise.
Right.
And my 5-year-old, guess what the government likes to do?
Right.
This is a big claim. My government has no problem groping my 5-year-old. What if my grandmother or my 5-year-old says, I don't want to go through the machine. I don't want to do all that. You know what they'll do? They will happily grope these super innocent beings for the purpose. Do you know why? Because one time there was a shoe bomb. One time, but that's what the government does.
And they didn't even find it in the TSA checkpoint, right?
Listen.
Wasn't it uncovered once he got on the plane?
It doesn't, I don't know, but I'll tell you this. If anybody ever says, well, Frank, don't you want universal health care? My answer is, yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I want everybody to have health insurance and be protected and be safe and be prosperous. I want everyone to be wealthy.
Yeah.
I want everyone to learn how to build wealth and be happy and have, and I'm sorry, I want everyone to have what I have.
Yeah,
I mean, I get the benefits of all of the American dream stuff. And you know what? It's not fair that other people don't get that.
Sure.
But what I'm not going to do is turn to the feds and say, hey, are you guys going to like do this for me or what?
Yeah.
Are you going to save all of us? Because going back to all the things that you and I talk about, and where are you going to look? Are you going to look inward and try to fix? Are you going to like use your spidey senses and shoot your light out of your hands to your immediate family and try to raise the ships up? Or are we just going to let it kind of crumble?
Well, what did Ben Franklin say? Those who would sacrifice liberty for security deserve neither.
Correct.
You know? Yeah, I mean, we can't guarantee everyone everything. And the more that we try, the more liberty gets taken away. And now I'm not like I stopped labeling myself as a libertarian a long time ago, mostly because...
When did you do that? I wasn't aware of this.
Yeah, just because I'll tell you what did it. The billionaire class is what did it. If we have a bunch of billionaires and we don't have some sort of government in place, I'm afraid that what we're going to get is feudalism. And feudalism is bad.
Well, so are you talking about the old school levels of feudalism or modern day feudalism? Because I do think that we have traded old school feudalism for a new postmodern
What is that? Which, by the way, I firmly believe that we'll see billionaire wars during our kids' lifetimes, maybe not ours, but during our kids' lifetimes.
Well, I remember a long time ago when Bernie Sanders, who I believe to be tied for first as the most consistent politician in my lifetime. I think Bernie Sanders and DJT are the two number one consistent politicians.
Yeah, they've been about the same thing.
I mean, I can go to YouTube and I can look up Donald Trump and Oprah Winfrey in 1988. Yeah. He's saying the exact same thing.
I genuinely do respect that. I
respect the consistency.
Yeah, but what were you saying?
I was just saying that so I'm a property owner.
Yeah.
I've been called landlord.
Yeah.
I take a look at the billionaire class, take a look at what I view as corporatism or crony capitalism. Yeah. I take a look at BlackRock buying up all of these homes, buying up all of this land. I take a look at if the rich are getting richer and the middle class is shrinking, and you've got a larger swath of poor, and so you've got more have-nots over time. I kind of attribute that to some type of modern day feudalism in that when my kids were born, they were assigned numbers like cattle.
Yeah.
They pay into a system, pay into a system, pay into a system. A lot of people are taxed at 50%. Many people are taxed at 50%. Sure. When you add in state taxes, Social Security,
absolutely.
FICA, Medicare,
absolutely.
Fuel taxes at the pump.
And you know what? Nobody does.
Obligatory.
Nobody does.
Sales tax, Mike.
Yeah, it's crazy.
When someone says, I know what my effective federal tax rate is, okay, good. Have you added in property taxes? Yeah. Have you added in the sales tax? Right. The sales tax is the gate that you have to pass through to use your own money, which I'm going to argue is double taxation.
I agree.
So in the fact that we've all got these numbers attached to ourselves, we are working for the feds, we are working our asses off to get half of our wealth confiscated by many groups of people, by the oligarchs, through the corporatism and the crony capitalism. I would say that is some weird mutated version of feudalism.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be somewhat reliant that the government is working in the best interest of the people, and that's a wishy-washy topic. Which, a side caveat to that, talking about like billionaires, for instance, or even just millionaires. I was reading something the other day. Somebody was commenting something on Facebook. I think it was one of the groups that has recently gotten banned for not having their real name on their profile, so they got that. Yeah, it was like that 51 whatever, that group. You know what I'm talking about? It's like the number or whatever. Yeah. Honestly, I don't even know what they're about. It just seemed too tedious to get on their page and see what they're all about. But I thought that it was funny, because what they were saying, they were like Elon Musk and Donald Trump both have used coercion and violence, and thuggery in order to create their wealth. Right? So we should tax them aggressively and redistribute that wealth. So I'm like, so wait, let me get this straight. You want to use the coercion and violence of the United States government in order to take money away from these people, in order to take it for yourself and others? How is that any different than what they've done? Even if you believe that that's what they've done, which I don't care. I don't want people doing that, but I'm just saying if that's what you believe whatever you want. But how is that any different?
Well,
it's exactly the same thing.
I think when Mela when Mela and Alejandra are older, there will be a new class called the trillionaire class.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think, when you're taking a look, when Forbes,
Which they already are trillionaires.
yeah, they're Saudi princes.
Yes, correct.
Maybe Putin, but definitely the Sauds.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I mean,
Absolutely.
Anybody who's living in Dubai and you never see their face in Fortune magazine,
If you're on the list of the top wealthiest people, you ain't one of them.
you ain't one of them. Yeah,
You know?
you're like
Yeah.
you're second tier.
Yes.
You're just a deca billionaire.
Absolutely.
That's it. Hey, next time you come on, so this is your 4th time.
Oh, my.
You wouldn't even believe. This is how fast it goes.
Good Lord.
This is how fast it goes when you and I talk.
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
Is that the Sistine Chapel there?
That is a Sistine Chapel. Yeah. Which
Creation of Adam.
correct.
Yeah.
Man, you are such a history guy. You look at this and you like, you know what that is, huh?
Yeah, the centerpiece,
yeah, buddy.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for having me, man.
Hey, thanks so much.
Yeah, don't fire me. I think we did a pretty good job of keeping it pretty balanced, I think.
It's balanced.
Yeah.
It's balanced. We didn't go off the
Don't fire me.
rails, and no,
Yeah.
you won't get fired. Hey,
Good.
thanks.
Yeah, you got it.
Thanks, buddy.
buddy. Yeah.